he fights Matt Favola and gets dropped 6 times.
It was bad, man. It was horrible.
I'm like, what in the world, man? Like, he did not look the same at all. Like, I don't know what that was.
I didn't know if he tried to come out and fight exciting like he did on the Contender Series, or he tried to fight boring like he did before. Well, not boring, but calculated like he did in his prior fights, and it kind of backfired. It was just a horrible performance, like one of the worst I've ever seen, to be honest.
To get dropped 6 times in like half a round or something like that.
But I think this fight is going to come down, as strange as this might sound. I think this fight may come down to who has the better jiu-jitsu defense.
Okay, now next we have, actually I think this is going to be a very interesting fight. We got Natan Levy and Genaro Valdez. Valdez is the guy that Matt Favola looked like Roy Jones Jr. against. Remember, he dropped him like 6 times, and
yeah,
that guy. And this guy Natan Levy, man, very interesting, man. So first of all, his only loss comes to Rafa Garcia, but that fight was much closer than it may seem like.
And Rafa is a bad matchup for him. Natan, his go-to is grappling, even though he throws kicks and stuff, but you can't take Rafa down. So it's like, that is a bad matchup.
Well, he did earlier, but then as the fight progressed, Rafa, that's all he could do was grapple, because Natan was getting the better of the stand-up. But Mike Breeden kind of put it on him. But nevertheless, man, that body kick from Natan, it comes out of nowhere. And then low-key, his wrestling is real good. He got that complex where he'll get you to the ground, but there's no real game plan once he gets you there. So then a lot of times you can end up standing back up and kind of going back and forth with him.
I know this is weird because before he came to the UFC, he was finishing people left and right. He was taking people down and finishing them and submitting them. And in the UFC, he hasn't really been doing it. It's kind of strange.
Outside of the Contender. Well, because you're not finna just submit Rafa and Mike Breeden. Like I said, that was a tough fight, man. Like, they really went to war. But there were times when he had Mike Breeden down and he could put the hooks in and go for a rear naked choke. He just wouldn't do it. He let Mike work his way back up to the feet, even though Mike was hurt. And it was just so odd. It was like, man, see, he got grappling, but he obviously wanted to finish the fight on the feet. Another thing is, he will hurt Mike Breeden, and instead of him going for the finish, you know what he'll do?
Right.
He'll throw a spinning kick. So now you just had the man hurt and wobbled, and he didn't know where he was. And who did that last week? The dude, he did it on Andre Filio. What's the Muslim Solikar? Yeah. Like, he had him hurt, and then instead of just finishing him, he went for a spinning kick. So even though the guy's hurt, he knows you about to throw that. So once he dodges that, it kind of gave him enough room and space where he can start recovering.
It's almost like Natan, he started off as a grappler, but his striking got better, and it's almost like he's almost becoming a striker. Because it's certain moments where I think if he was a couple years ago, early on in his career, he would have went for the finish and a submission. But because his striking is getting better and he's throwing more kicks and stuff, now he's like, okay, well, I can just keep it on the feet. Yeah, but you're not getting the finishes though, bro. We want to see you get the guillotine. We want to see you get the armbar.
Well, not only that, when you don't finish fights, you give opportunities for other people to come back and finish you. That's why I'm big on finishes. Because a lot of times when I see people and there's opportunity for them to take somebody's back and they don't do it, what end up happening? The other person end up coming back and winning, and it's like, you really had that person's back, and that fight could have been over. Or you could have just controlled them. You could have backpacked them like Aljamain at least. It's a W either way it go.
Hey, but Natan, I hate to say this, you might disagree with me with this, but I think Natan, he has, I'm not going to say champion energy, but he has like top 5 energy. Like, his mindset, the way he carries himself,
he's very durable.
And it's like, I hate to say it's kind of, I'm not comparing him to Jamal Hill, but you know how Jamal Hill got like a different type of mindset. It's like, can anybody beat me? I mean, obviously he has some deficiencies in his game he has to work on, but I like his mindset.
I like his mindset too, because he's very durable. Because all his fights been entertaining, man. Santana, Garcia, Breeden. One thing I will say, man, for some reason it seems like he do get hurt in these fights. And he's very good at keeping his defense tight so he don't absorb a lot of damage. Remember, Anthony Pettis used to get hit one time and nope, you're not landing nothing else. What Natan does good is he covers up well. But if you fight somebody who starts like grappling, a little bit, you might be in trouble. Now, what's so odd about the Genaro Valdez is that, man, he was a killer on a contender. It was, hey, this might be one of the best fights on the contender that you will ever see. This Patrick White one.
Yeah.
Because
they both were just throwing punches, man. Yeah. But you want to tell what's odd about that is that's not how he fight. Because I watched the fight and I went and looked at the comments and somebody said that's not how he fights. And I started looking at some of his prior fights and he's more calculated, more measurable. I think before the fight, Dana White came to both of them, was like saying, we want an exciting fight out of both of y'all. And I think both of them just went like balls to the wall. And was like,
well, that was the week. I think somebody had some bad fights the week prior. And Dana was like, that ain't what the contender is. This ain't the Ultimate Fighter where you win by any means necessary, and then we end up getting a super boring Ultimate Fighter winner that we can't market, that don't nobody want to see. No, this the contender is you go crazy on here. Dana told him, like, I don't watch y'all fights before you get here, so I don't know nothing about you being undefeated. I don't know nothing about nothing you've done. All I know is what you're going to show me tonight, so you better be excited. And Brandon Moreno, he trained with Brandon Moreno, and so they were speaking real highly of him. So he basically knew I got to go out and put on a fight. The reality is he got to the UFC, he fights Matt Favola and gets dropped 6 times.
It was bad, man. It was horrible.
I'm like, what in the world, man? Like, he did not look the same at all. Like, I don't know what that was.
I didn't know if he tried to come out and fight exciting like he did on the Contender Series, or he tried to fight boring like he did before. Well, not boring, but calculated like he did in his prior fights, and it kind of backfired. It was just a horrible performance, like one of the worst I've ever seen, to be honest.
To get dropped 6 times in like half a round or something like that.
But I think this fight is gonna come down, as strange as this might sound. I think this fight may comes down to who has the better jiu-jitsu defense. Cause this fight gonna hit the ground. You know, sometimes guys have offense, man, but then they kind of like Michael Chiesa. But sometimes he can be a little bit susceptible to getting submitted himself. I think it's gonna be all kind of scrambles in this fight, man. I think it's gonna come down to who can survive.
If that's the case, I'm leaning more towards Genaro, because Natan, I've watched him take people's back in the UFC, and you could argue he really should be undefeated so far in the UFC, because he's had opportunities to control people on the ground. It's like what he does is he gets takedowns so he can score.
Oh yeah,
not to finish, and that's what my problem is, because Valdez, if he get a takedown, he definitely going for something. Like, at the very least, he'll backpack you, but
you know he don't have any rear naked chokes, man, wins.
No, I'm looking at
Natan. Natan. Yeah, so it's like, man, that's not really good. That's an easy, way to get victory.
If Matt Favola dropped you like that, I know that Natan, he doesn't fight at such a furious pace. He's a little bit more calculated, but he is busy and he is smart. And whatever he does, man, it just seems to be working.
And also, he's real sneaky too, man. He has a sneaky left body kick. Yep. He has a sneaky left high kick, and he might catch him too.
A sneaky left hand too, and you don't know which one he's gonna throw. Once he dip off to the right, you don't know what's coming, and it could just be a jab, and then eventually something catches you. But I'm sorry, but for Valdez to get dropped 6 times by Matt Favola, I just can't pick him, man.
I picked the other guy.
I'm gonna pick the other guy. But I will say, man, Valdez, that was the worst performance I ever seen out of him.
It was.
Like, and I hate to judge him by that one bad performance, but that was one of the most awful things I've ever seen.
Cause it gets worse for Matt Favola, man. You get knocked up by Matt, man, you get in the top 10, bro. Them guys, man.
Matt ain't even a knockout artist. Natan actually is a knockout artist. Like, he will hit you with something.
He got 0 knockouts. I don't know about knockout artists, man.
But it's like he hurting people, though.
Yeah, he has hurt like a lot of people.
Everybody going down. Rafa had no choice.
And it's weird. Ain't no point beating a dead horse, but I think if Natan, if he would have fought against Matt Favola, he would have got knocked down that first time, and he would have recovered, and he would change the game plan. But for Genaro to get knocked down like that, bro, he just steady getting knocked down. He didn't change things up. He didn't clinch. It was like, bro, this is just horrible. Like, are you good enough to be in the UFC? But he hasn't shown it yet, But
he clearly has a lot of talent and skill, so I'm hoping to see a better performance out of him. Natan has been racking up a lot of experience, man. And one thing, Natan is very durable. So, I don't know, man. This is a tough one for me, man, because I really don't want to see Valdez lose again, because, like I said, that dang near was like 3 or 4 losses in a row. That was like 3 or 4 losses at once.
And to counter that, Natan, sometimes he don't pull the trigger. So he can be fighting, even if you go out and beat Genaro, man, what happens when you fight the next guy and he have opportunities to finish him, and he don't, and he get finished in 3rd round? You remember John Herbert do that a lot? You have an opportunity to finish him, and he'll get finished in 3rd round. It's like, bro, if you would knock him out in the 1st round, you wouldn't be here.
When you had him hurt. So man, I'm gonna lean more towards Natan just because I've seen him get the job done, and I know he can win because he's 2-1 in the UFC, and that one loss came to Rafa, who they was 1-1 going to the third round, and Rafa just started out wrestling him. And I don't know if Valdez can really do that because he really had a hard time taking Patrick White down on the Contender. So, and he obviously didn't come close to taking Matt Favola down. So, I just don't. I would like to see a good performance though.
I'm gonna tell you what I think gonna happen. I think Natan's gonna win, but I think it's gonna be closer than what people think. I think he's gonna just edge out a victory.
I told you, them other two fights was real close. You could almost swap the results. Almost. It wasn't a robbery or nothing, but Natan does seem to have a lot of close fights though. Like the Rafa fight was close. The Mike Breeden fight, and they was both going back and forth. So if Valdez can stay in it, hey, he might be able to do something.